You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Are you projecting in the wrong direction? Find out today how the simple action can keep you stuck indefinitely. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer. What if everything we've been told about holistic health, healing, and well-being is only part of the story? Because thriving in today's world looks different than it used to. Here, we challenge the narratives, rethink what it means to become human, and explore how that shapes the way we lead, live, and step into our full potential. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Building a business can take everything we have, and the pressure does not let up just because we start getting it right. If anything, that is when it often gets even more complicated and confusing. Daniel Wood is the CEO and co-founder of the Swedish Wealth Institute, leading a global movement to democratize success by giving everyday people direct access to world-class mentors like Robert and Kim Kiyosaki, Les Brown, Jack Canfield, John Assaraf, and Brian Tracy. Through large-scale summits, workshops, and the Swedish Wealth Institute Podcast, he delivers practical, proven strategies that help entrepreneurs and investors create real freedom. Let's meet Daniel Wood. Before we begin today's episode, we have a special invitation for you. We often talk about personal growth as a solo journey, but the most profound shifts happen when we bring together our individual experiences. Imagine a week where you are engaging with a global community and learning from over 60 heart-led humans to bridge the gap between information and transformation. We are diving deep into the integration of mind, body, energy, human potential, and leadership to move beyond just surviving and into a state of collective thriving. Join us for the Holistic Wellbeing Summit from June 8th to 14th. For speaker sessions and interactive live events to spark your next evolution. Get your free ticket now at holisticwellbeingsummit.com. And now, back to today's episode. Hi, Daniel. It's great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because we are going to be diving into overcoming challenges as entrepreneurs. And geez, I feel like this is such a timely topic that can apply to so many of us out there. And of course, entrepreneurs of all sizes face all sorts of challenges. So thank you for being here today and welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. It's fun to be here and it's my turn to talk. Yesterday, we recorded for our podcast and I got to listen to you. So that was awesome.
Yeah, amazing. I had such a fun time yesterday, and I'm so glad that we were able to reciprocate and that you're here today to share your wisdom. I know we're all looking forward to it. And for starters, Daniel, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and maybe the parts of your journey and your story that you feel connect to what you do today? And also share with our listeners what it is that you do today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the subject we're talking about today about how entrepreneurs are struggling and the stress and the pressure. And as you said, it doesn't matter really where the entrepreneur is, you always have that pressure. And I've been through the startup phase. I've been through the losing money and essentially going bankrupt and then the extreme scaling. And they're all stressful for different reasons. Today, I run the Swedish Wealth Institute, where we do events for people from all over the world, for entrepreneurs. We do personal development. We work with speakers like Les Brown and Nick Vujicic and Robert Kiyosaki and Jack Canfield and Marcy Shimoff and Janet Atwood and Brian Tracy and just these absolutely amazing people that we've had the blessing to work with. And what started this out, which actually makes it even more fun. I mentioned that one of our speakers we work with is Brian Tracy. When I think I was just turned 18. I'd finished high school. I'd started working, and the company I was working at actually got us tickets to see Brian Tracy come to Stockholm. So he's only been to Sweden speaking maybe 4 times in his career, and I was able to get to see him. And this was the first time I realized that, like, when school is over, there is still development. Like, it doesn't end, right? You can still continue professional development. And he talked a lot about writing down and setting clear goals. And I've always been very goal oriented, but I'd never written them down. So that was a really cool insight that now over 20 years later, I still remember. But no, it was really exciting. But then the years went, I had my business career, and it must be 6 years later. I was working as a consultant, and I was working with these two young guys who just started their recruitment agency. And I took them out to lunch, and we got into talking about their life and their background. And it turned out that they had been working for one of the largest banks in Sweden before they'd quit and started this little recruitment agency. And when I dug a little deeper, it turned out that they were actually on the management track of that bank. They were tapped to be the future CEOs of one of the major banks in Sweden. And I just looked at them because that was like my dream career, right? That's what I was working for. And they left it all to start this crappy little company. And I was like, I just looked at him like, I know what your business is. Like, I'm helping you set it up. How could you do this? And obviously, I wasn't the first person to ask this question of these two young men. So they looked at each other and they smiled and they went, "Have you read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad?" And I said, "No, I haven't." They said, "Read that book. If you still have that question, come talk to us then." So I sat down and I read the book in 3 or 4 days. Like, I couldn't put it down. And the two things that really stood out to me, first, I realized why they'd done this. Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the book, he said, why are you trying to climb the ladder? You should own the ladder. And that's what I realized. Like, I had been trying to climb the ladder. They had just taken and started building their own. And so that was the first insight. The second one was how he talked about build assets, avoid liabilities, and create freedom and security for yourself. And I'd always lived the rat race version of, I work really hard and then I have my weekend and that's precious. And then I'm working for my vacation rather than working to live my mission or live my life. And I realized that if I could create assets, that would give me some freedom in my life. What was cool, and it really felt guidance, was just a couple days after finishing reading the book, I saw an ad on LinkedIn that said Robert Kiyosaki teaches real estate, property investing. And so I got really excited. It turned out it wasn't Robert. It was a company that had licensed his brand, but which is one of the things that, like, now when we host Robert for events, we sometimes get that question, like, is this really Robert or is this someone just borrowing his brand? No, it's Robert is showing up. It's fine. It's real. But that's where that came from. So I know where they're coming from because that's how I got pulled in. But I still loved it. They were talking about how to invest in real estate in the UK. And I live in Sweden, so they explained that Sweden is not a great market for investing, which is true, and the UK is, which is also true. So I signed up, I bought all their mentorship programs and everything because their promise was they'd give me the entire team. They called it a business in a box, and I would just jack into that and become financially free. And they helped me with information packages for how to go out and raise money because I couldn't afford to buy a bunch of properties. I had some money, but not that much. And so the idea was you go out and you raise money from friends and family. And they explained, here's basically an information pack of all these people we've introduced you to. So you're not selling your experience, you're selling their experience. And so I went out to everyone I knew and was like, hey, it's fine. We're going to do this together. Look at this amazing team we got. This is going to go amazing. Turned out it didn't go amazing. It turned out that a lot of these people had realized two things. First off, these students coming through this training were inexperienced and were based in a different country, which means our ability to overview their work was subpar. And they started sending fake reports, fake build reports, fake rental reports. So we did buy properties. In my first year, we bought about 20 properties. Yeah, so we really exploded out the gate. But sadly, the result of those properties were more that people were stealing money from us rather than us building a future. So when the dust finally settled about a year later, because real estate is slow, it takes a while for this to come out. About a year later, we realized we were about 400,000 pounds in debt, like more than our assets. So obviously the total debt was much more, but we did have some assets, but our loss was about 400,000 pounds. And I had to call around to all these people that had come in, and we were all so excited and explain, hey, I've lost it. And that was really rough. And I spent the next year trying to figure out how do I turn this around, which is probably why I got all this white in my beard already. It was a stressful year. But at the end of this, and so this is 2 years into what was supposed to be my freedom journey. And the result is everyone is pissed. Nothing is going well. And we have hypothetically a massive portfolio, but it has absolutely no value. And finally, my accountant calls me and he says, Daniel, it's time to bankrupt your company. And now if people listening are in the US or in the UK, they're going like, yeah, great. Bankrupt the company, start over. That's fine. In Sweden, that's not how we see it. Like if someone has bankrupted a company, they are a failed entrepreneur. You're barely going to be able to open a bank account. You can kiss credit goodbye. Like it's not going to happen. So I was obviously crushed. I'm going like, okay, yeah, I get it, Michael. I can't be doing this anymore. So what happens now? And he says, what we're going to do is we'll sell off the assets you have. We'll pay as much as we can to your creditors. We'll write off the rest. And then what I'll do is I'll set up a new company for you. You can start fresh because you've learned a bunch in these last 2 years. And I was like, wait, say that one more time. Yeah, you'll start fresh. I'll set up a new company. And I was in shock, right? I'm like, wait, we can do that? Like, why didn't you tell me this a year ago? I've been in pain and you had a reset button? He said, now we're at the point where we have to do this. So let's do it. And I was just about to say yes when I realized I still had one question. And it was, what happens to my friends and family who've invested with me? And he said, they invested in failed projects, so they've lost most of their money. And so I said, so what you're saying is I can start fresh and they will take the entire loss. And he said, I guess that's one way to look at it. And yeah, I'd put in money as well. But he said, that's how this thing works. And I said, no, Michael, that's not what happened. They didn't invest in failed projects. They invested in me. So if I'm starting fresh, they got to start fresh. And he said, well, then we don't have to bankrupt the company because if the debt is still there, you're still screwed. What are you going to do? I said, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're not going to do that. And this is actually what then created the Swedish Wealth Institute. Because what happened was we weren't the only people that had gone through this education. Over these 2 years, this company had kept teaching in Sweden. And so by now, there were about 200 of us who had all gone through this mentorship program, and we had been able to gather them all. So we would meet up we had in the building we lived, we had a locale that we could rent. So we would gather like once a month, all these people, and finally we had to move out of that. We had to rent like a communal gathering center for everyone to meet up. But we'd gather all these 200 people and we'd try to figure out, how do we do this? And of course, it was like the blind leading the blind, right? None of us knew what we were doing. But at that point, we realized that, wait a sec, this is a really good community. This is 200 people that have invested heavily in themselves. They've taken action. They want to do something and they need guidance. There are other speakers out there who do coaching, who do support, that would love to connect with this audience. The audience, like they're coming in from all over Sweden to learn. So obviously they're still hungry to learn. So they, with the right mentor, they might be able to figure it out. And we were, of course, in a situation where we were broke. We couldn't go traveling to other places. Can you imagine calling my investors and saying, hey, look, I'm sorry about the 400,000, but I got great news. I'm going to fly to Florida and learn from Tony Robbins, and we're going to fix it. I mean, they would, yeah, just why are you spending more money? Stop going to Florida. Give me that money. So we knew we needed to do something. And the solution was we'd bring these speakers to Sweden. They would get to speak to the community. And then we would take them out to dinner and get some free coaching. So the whole Swedish Wealth Institute was never built, not originally to be a commercial company. It was built to help our friends and get us some free coaching. And we opened the doors outside of just our group of 200. So we opened it for the whole market. And within a year, we were the biggest in the Swedish market, mostly because the other company that had been doing the similar thing in Sweden went bankrupt just around the same time we started. So we just perfectly had an open market for ourselves. Again, sometimes you get support from the universe. And we were able to step in, and I got a call from the partners for Tony Robbins, who called me up. And at this point, I didn't know who Tony was. So they called me up and they said, "Hey, we hear you're doing great things for the Swedish market. Would you like to be the partner for Tony Robbins?" And I was like, "I don't really know who that is, but yeah, we're looking for great speakers." And I can hear this person on the other side of the line kind of go, "Oh my God, this idiot does not realize I just gave him his company here. This is what's going to get him to explode." And I can hear the deep breath of, "Okay, so Daniel, what we're going to do is we're going to send you a speaker, set up an event, you'll sell some tickets, and then we'll fly you in to the next event we got with Tony this year, and you can see what this is about." And I was like, "Yeah, all right, cool. We'll bring in the speaker, we'll make some money, and then free event." Yeah, I'm in. So I show up in London a couple months later, and I walk into the room and there's 10,000 people yelling. And I'm like, "Oh, so this is what this industry is," right? I was used to our little like 100, 200 people and very proper and Swedish, and we're taking our notes. And here people are dancing and they're yelling and they're experiencing and their lives are changing. And I was like, okay, it's different. So we came back the next year, and that year we had about 50 people that came with us. And for the second year then in a row, I got to meet the other promoters all over Europe who were bringing people in. So these were the largest event companies in Europe. They were bringing thousands of people to this event. And I was like, "Yeah, we got 50. So we were the little player. But a couple weeks after this second UPW, so this is about 4 years after I started this real estate journey, I'm still in that same place. I have no idea what to do. I'm stressing out. We're building a little bit of momentum in this other company with the hope of maybe someday figuring out the real estate. A couple weeks later, I get the call from one of the other promoters who says, "We're bringing Kim Kiyosaki, who is Robert's wife, and who actually managed their portfolio, which back then, this is almost 10 years ago, was about 3,000 properties." And he said, "We're bringing her and a couple of her friends on a tour through Europe. Would you want her to stop by Stockholm?" And I said, "Yes, I would very much want to host her in Stockholm." So this was our second Empowered Women event we did, and it coincided perfectly with the dates. And so Kim was our speaker for that event, and I was able to organize the trip so that she would spend 4 days in Sweden, and our event was only 2 days. And the other promoters were happy because I was covering hotels and everything, but this meant the whole idea of the Swedish Wealth Institute, set up an event and get some free coaching. Now I could show her around Stockholm, and we could take her to lunch, we could take her to dinner. And as we got to know each other, I finally explained, "Look, this is the real estate situation I'm in. What do I do with this?" And she looked at it, and I'd spent 4 years on this problem, right? I'd done everything I could to figure it out. She spends 15 minutes looking at it and then goes, "Restructure that debt, restructure that deal, and do 2 more deals like that one, and you're done." I was like, "Wait, say that again slowly." She said, "Restructure that debt, restructure that deal, do 2 more deals like that, and your books are balanced." And it was like, for the first time in 4 years, I actually saw 3 years, I saw a light at the end of the tunnel. I knew there was a way to get out of this. And this is where I truly became passionate for the Swedish Wealth Institute, because like I had gone through what a bad mentor was, right? You lose everything. I lost my home. I lost my marriage in the end. I lost time, friends, money, like everything. And it took Kim 15 minutes to figure it all out and just say, "Here, this is what you need to do." Now, obviously, it took years for us to implement this, but it gave us that light at the end of the tunnel. And that's when I truly understood how important what we do is, and why our job was to be that connector, to help people find the right mentor at the right time to help them change their lives. And just as important it is for us to find who to introduce them to, is to make sure that we never introduce them to the type of people I was introduced to. And that's what then, from then on, that became my passion. I'm about to sell, by the time this episode drops, hopefully I will have sold my last property in the UK, and that will be over. And now that's my full focus, is the Swedish Wealth Institute and the events we're doing and the impact we're having on people and their lives, which has been so rewarding. So I look at it and go, even with that, I still say life happens for me, not to me. Because if I look back, and obviously it would have been amazing if the properties had gone right, and it does for other people. I'm not saying real estate is bad. I'm saying I had the wrong people. But if I'd gotten the right people and it had gone, I would probably be lying on a beach somewhere, sipping Mai Tais, and I wouldn't have any impact on the world or other people. Now, because of what I've gone through, we're going to have 500,000 people attend our events this year, and we'll be changing, hopefully, 500,000 lives, which would be absolutely amazing.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your journey and your story. And it just makes me so aware that many of us are in these positions where one thing went wrong. We had maybe the wrong advice, the wrong mentor, we connected with the wrong people or the wrong project. And we let that completely stop us from what we actually wanted to do or how we wanted to be present. Because as you experienced, we don't see a way out. And we feel that guilt, that shame, that embarrassment of having a failed project. And that can do a lot to your mental health, to your physical health. So there are a lot of consequences to that. And I love that you actually shared that there is something that can be done. And in most of our cases, I would believe that there are things that we can do and we can move past these failures, learn from them, and grow in that process. And as you said, you wouldn't be impacting the world in the same way had you just given up and started a fresh company, moved forward. It probably wouldn't have been the same at all. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And how did you feel going through this journey? Because I feel there was a lot of pressure, a lot of emotions, a lot of stress during that time of trying to navigate this. So what would you say to our listeners if they're experiencing some of those same things and they just want to throw in the towel and say, hey, you know what, I value my peace of mind more than going through all of this. What would you say to them and what can you share about that part of your journey?
Yeah, I laugh when you say that because yes, there was pressure, but at the same time, right now, obviously things are going really well and it's really fun, but it's a different type, but it's as intense pressure now. So I don't want to be doom and gloom now for anyone listening going, whatever you do as an entrepreneur, it's always pressure. It's always horrible, but there are different types of pressures based on where you are in the cycle. So when we just started out, it was just pure excitement, right? It was that honeymoon phase of a relationship where everything is just absolutely amazing and exciting. And it was so much fun. And then when that reality hit and it was that true, first off, I've lost my own money. Second of all, I've lost everyone else's money. And now I'm the pain of having let them down. It's also my own view of myself. Of I am capable and I am skilled. Wait, maybe I'm not. There is this future that I've painted for myself where we have 20 properties now. They're all going to be making 100, 200 pounds a month, which means we have 2,000 to 4,000 pounds a month of recurring income for the rest of our lives. That's when obviously, as I mentioned, I lost my marriage during all this, but one of us would have been able to quit our jobs just based on that start. And for the rest of our lives, that would be covered. And all of a sudden, that's not true. And now we're in negative, and this might not be a reasonable path. And now I have to work for another 40 years. It was just so many stories within myself that were being disproven, that were being changed, and both for myself and for my family, and then for everyone else I was letting down. And again, the image that I wanted people to have of me and that I had of myself. So obviously it was stressful. And the fact that I would wake up with nightmares in the middle of the night, feeling that stress, feeling that pressure. We had young kids at the time. We had to sell our home. We ended up living in our summer house, which sounds great when you say summer house, but it was literally a 30 square meter cottage, which only had running water in the summer and didn't have plumbing. So it didn't even have a bathroom. And in the winter, it didn't even have running water. We had to go and we actually had to live a winter like this where we didn't have, it wasn't like it was cold, but it wasn't proper insulation. So we had to try to keep it warm any way we could. When we needed to go to the bathroom, it was a 100-meter walk through the snow to brush our teeth, to get water. So like we would do in the evening, we would go the whole family, like we'd get the two kids. I have three now, but then we had 2 kids. We'd get them in their double baby carriage and push them through the snow. And then I would have a wheelbarrow with a big dunk to put water in, a big container to put the water in so that we'd have running water and be able to boil it for breakfast and stuff. All of that was obviously emotionally awful, and it affected all parts of life, right? Your ability to be a vital person and energetic, and the health and everything else fell. So that moment when Kim gave that, here is your path, was absolutely amazing, because it's like what you talk about with the functional freeze, right? I was still trying to project like this is possible. Like we were running these events and I wasn't saying I'm successful, but look at these people. And a part of me on the inside was going like, screw you all. Like, here is a good person. If I had existed for me, I would not be in this situation. So you're welcome, and screw all of you. I'm leaving. Like, it was that jealousy of my own clients because what we were giving them wasn't given to us. But finally there, when Kim gave that direction, a lot of that pressure dropped, and it was like, great, I can fix my situation, and I'm put here for a reason so that other people don't have to go through this that I've gone through. And that's grown into a true passion. But the kind of flip side now, if you take the positive stress side of it, which is fun as well, is last year. So then in the middle of this, like as we grew and started solving things, COVID happened. That was a new crisis. So we don't have to go too deep into all my pains now. Too much trauma for one little episode. But coming out of COVID, we had a decent kind of first year back, and then we grew the second year. And then the third year was last year for us. There was a break for the industry. So the third year now, last year, we 10x the company. And obviously that makes huge differences. We're on target to somewhere between 3 and 5x again this year, which obviously is a really exciting trajectory, which also means that if we hit 5x, that means we'll have 50x the company over 2 years. That means we're playing a completely different game, right? We're doing something completely different at a different level. We've gone from just over a year ago, the company was basically me and a designer who would do our banners and stuff. And that was the business. And now we have a whole army of consultants surrounding us, and we're 9 people internally in the team. So like the scale is completely different. And this now creates this different stress. All of a sudden I've gone from, if there's something that needs to be done, I open my computer, I do it, and we're good. I only have to pay my own salary and we're fine. And as long as we make decent money, I make decent money. To this point where now I need to make sure we make payroll. I need to, like, the amount of money that's rolling through our accounts is completely different, but it goes up and down as we're running events. And it's also like when things happen in the world, obviously there's a lot that's been happening, and I'm sure in the months between us recording and this coming out, a lot more will happen. And one of the things I do is I'll hold space for my team. I'll let them feel what they're feeling. I'll let them go through those emotions and then try to refocus them on what is the task that we have at hand. So there's a completely new set of pressures that comes up, which are obviously exciting, but it's also, as they say, the biggest bottleneck for a company is generally the founder, which means I need to keep learning. And as we're growing this quickly, that means I need to grow that quickly or quicker. It's been a really interesting journey. I'm lucky. I'm blessed with some great mentors and people we're working with, and I'm using a lot of tools to expand, but it does put a lot of pressure on the nervous system to get better every single day, which is one of our core values, but the rate is heavy. There's one version of stress when everything goes horribly. There's a completely different version of stress when everything is going amazingly well. And either way, you got to find ways to handle and deal with it.
Yeah, so true. But thank you for sharing this in a really honest and vulnerable way, because I feel we often gloss over the pieces of being an entrepreneur. So thanks for sharing that so honestly. And I'm so excited because you are having such an impact on the world and really connecting people to these wonderful mentors to ensure that people don't have to have that same journey that you went on. And of course, that helps not just their pocketbooks, but also their own health and their own well-being. You lost your marriage over this, and I'm sure physically didn't feel great going through all of that either. So Yes,
Again,
that's wonderful
the
work
wife
that
and
you
the
do.
beard here right there. That's all these things.
Some aging that happens very quickly. So what do you do now, Daniel, to, I want to say, not burn out with the things that are going on? And how do you stay centered and balanced and grounded as you're growing your company and you're experiencing a lot of positive stress, but also, of course, some of the pressures that come with scaling? What do you do to stay in your center and in your zone during all of this?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. And there are so many different things that go through you as an entrepreneur, I think. And I think a big part is, especially as you're working on growing yourself, you have this vision for the future of where you're taking your company. And that's one of my strengths is I'm very good at visualizing the future, and I'm very focused on us getting better every day. And the positive of that is that means that we'll be better tomorrow than we are today. Now, the negative that happens emotionally is we're going to be better tomorrow than we are today, which means tomorrow is always better. Next year is always better. Like, do you just wait where we'll be in a year? That will be amazing, which means today is actually really boring in comparison. Like, we've talked about what we're doing with the community, the next version that's coming out that will be absolutely amazing for people going through it and getting to connect with mentors and other people from all over the world. Because I live there, like that's what I see. That means the current version is so much more boring than that one. So what I've had to become much better at is projecting backwards. The same way I project forward to project backwards and go, all right, so if I go and talk to me a year ago and I explain this is what my life looks like now, the 1 year ago me would really just look at me and go, what are you bitching about now? Like, really? You're complaining? Like, the community now is amazing. Like, you got courses from Dr. John Demartini. A year ago, I was dreaming of speaking with him, and now you have a unique course that he just sat down and recorded for you. Slap me over the face for and how we've grown and the impact we have. And like, now I can be disappointed if we have 10,000 people registered for an event. Back then, that would have been 3 times the size of an event we ever had. So I think that's an important part to stop, step back. And I'll always ask myself then 3 questions that just, what are 3 things that I'm really happy about in my life now? So that kind of removes me from the future anger to go, you know what? Life is pretty good. I can't complain too much. Outside of that, I've added a lot of very cool exercises to help me get a little break during the day. We talked about this on the Swedish Wealth Institute podcast, how like the nervous system is so on all the time. And especially as an entrepreneur, I think, where it's always something, like there's always a text that can come in at any time of the day that you need to deal with. So you're always ready for it. When we say train the nervous system, I think we're constantly training the nervous system. We actually need to allow it to recover. And it's like being in the gym, right? You can be lifting weights for 20 hours straight. It's not going to make you stronger until you take an 8-hour proper sleep and let the body recover before you work out again. And you said some amazing things on that episode about taking these micro breaks. I've used some for a long time I interviewed Marcy Shimoff on the Swedish Wealth Institute podcast, and she's absolutely amazing. And so she taught me an exercise, heart breath, to go and really get that heart-mind coherence. So I do that a couple times every day. I'll take breaks and read books. And I do reading biographies and personal development, but I'll take breaks and read like a fantasy book just to completely disconnect from the day-to-day and go into another world where I can just experience something else, which is very calming for me. And then after our interview yesterday, I added to my to-do list to do a little ear massage every day and a little hand massage every day. And I was already, because I've had an injured foot, doing a foot rehab and stuff. And I have my workouts and I do a lot of health related things. I have my infrared light. So I have 20 minutes every day. I end every day with a 20-minute warm bath. And so I'm trying to create these different spaces during the day where I can really relax and disconnect.
I love that. And I think, as we talked about as well, we don't have to do this for 2, 3, 4 hours a day. Most of us are really busy. And if we can find just these pockets where we can fit some of those breaks in, like you are doing, I feel over time that will already make a huge difference in how we support ourselves and our capacity to actually show up when things become difficult and when we get challenged in many different ways. So thank you for sharing that. And I do believe our listeners will find so many little nuggets in what you shared and little things they can add to their days and maybe move a few things around just a little bit to create these 5-10 minute pockets where this can be fitted in. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And of course, I also want to ask you, our listeners are probably super curious right now, how they can connect with you at the Swedish Wealth Institute. What do you offer? What can they learn? Where can they learn? So share a little bit about programs, services, resources, and everything that you have available at the Swedish Wealth Institute.
I really appreciate that. First off, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you enjoy listening to podcasts. We'd love to have you come and listen to the Swedish Wealth Institute podcast. We've been blessed to interview amazing people. Obviously, I mentioned Marcy Shimoff. We've interviewed Jack Canfield, Dr. John DeMartini. Obviously, we have you on, Petra, and I think we're dropping this our episode before this one comes out, so you guys should be able to find it. And just some absolutely amazing people that teach everything from entrepreneurship to investing to personal development to spiritual development, how to handle stresses and growth, which has just been so transformative for me. So I definitely hope everyone goes and listens to that. We also have our events, which obviously we're always running events. So whenever you listen to this, whether it's right when it drops or months after, you can go to the swedishwealthinstitute.com/events and you'll see the ones we have coming up. And what we do is pretty much every event is completely free to register for. And when you do, we actually make a donation to Eden Reforestation Project. Even though like you're signing up for a free event, we hope you show up, but you're not actually committing to anything. But as a thank you for taking that step of action, we make a donation and Eden can reclaim 1 square meter of land and turn it back into forest or rainforest. So just by checking out, seeing if there's any event you enjoy, you will actually make a positive impact in the world. And then if you actually show up, you can make a positive impact on yourself, which hopefully then becomes this ripple effect that truly changes the world. And then Petra, we discussed here before the call, you've obviously created an absolutely amazing course for our community that I mentioned. And the community is really built around your individual journey. So one of the things that the moment we really started growing with the Swedish Wealth Institute, I started to see that our events, I love them. Like they're amazing, right? We'll have 20, 30,000 people registered. We'll have 20 absolutely amazing speakers. And it's this explosive day with knowledge and connection. The one thing I feel is missing with it is it's generic, right? It's the same event for everybody. And you'll learn from all these speakers, and then you can find that's the one I want to learn more from. What we can do in the community, because we can get to know you more, is we can create more of an individualized journey for you, where what we're working on now, and hopefully this, by the time this comes out, will be a lot further down the line. But what we're working on is when you join, we'll help you identify where are you now, where is it you want to get to, and what is the biggest limiting factor for you right now. And that might be something within yourself. It might be a trauma. It might be stress. It might be health, or it might be something outside of yourself. It could be connections. It could be a skill. Maybe you don't know marketing well enough, or maybe you don't know AI, or maybe it's something else. So it might be an external. It might be an internal. But what we're doing in there is then we'll connect you automatically with who is the best person to help you. And sometimes that's just other people in the community. It might just be having a peer group, people to support you, having a mastermind or an accountability buddy that you can talk to once a week and go, hey, how are you doing? Where are you up to? Or it might be, if you need that specific skill, we have some of the best teachers in the world. I obviously already mentioned Jack Canfield and Dr. John DeMartini, and of course yourself, Petra, who have added courses to this course library and will help you connect. This is your limiting factor. This course is the absolute perfect one to help you fix it. And when you then go and take it, you can learn from the best in the world how to overcome that limiting belief. So the community is 27 euros a month, But as a thank you for putting up with me for as long as I can monologue, we agreed here before the call that we'd give you 2 weeks free access to the community. So you can set up your profile, you can get that, identify what is your limiting belief, and hopefully you can start taking a course that helps you figure out what that is. And then, of course, if you want to continue to connect in the community, continue to learn, you're more than welcome to stay. If you want to cancel, you are free to cancel. But we'd love to serve you that way and help you connect with people from all over the world, connect with the best teachers in the world, and hopefully take that next step on your journey to that dream life that you so deserve.
Beautifully said, and thank you for sharing. And of course, thank you for your generous offer for our listeners to experience this for themselves for 2 weeks. And we will be linking to all the resources that you shared in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there for all of the events where you can find those, how you can join, how you can take advantage, build your profile in the community, try that out for 2 weeks. I have a feeling that after 2 weeks, you're going to be so excited by the transformations and the access that you have for the programs that are available that you're probably wanting to stay on and keep diving in further. I feel this is amazing access in a sense that there are so many things to choose from, and you are actually helping people show what are maybe the pieces where you're being challenged that would be a good thing to overcome. So I feel that's really helpful. Sometimes we're just overwhelmed by so much information, we don't know where to start. So that's fantastic.
I think that's the difficulty. It's that attempt to both sort through all the information that's out there and then get that human touch where the solution isn't more information. It's who do I need to connect with to overcome this? And I think that's one of the things that obviously the way the world is moving towards, we're losing some of that human connection. And that's where I believe that technology can allow us more connection. And that's what we're trying to create there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a little bit of what we talked about before we started recording too, is bringing back that human connection and really authentically showing up and just being fully ourselves. So yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And Daniel, thank you for spending time with me today. And of course, all the amazing things that you're doing with the Swedish Wealth Institute. I can't wait to share more about that. And also, I feel this would be a great support for listeners. Whether you are an entrepreneur who is already established, or you have a thought and maybe an idea and you may want to become an entrepreneur, I feel that personal development and personal growth, you can never go wrong by investing in yourself and actually supporting yourself and learning on all different levels. So no matter where you're at with that, even if you work for a company, maybe you are thinking about building your own ladder, as Daniel was saying, right? Maybe you want to do that. So there's always opportunity to learn and grow with these amazing resources. Thank you for being here today, Daniel. Thanks for sharing the space and your wisdom and your journey. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you've had an amazing time today. So many little nuggets. Go back through the episode and pick some of those out for your own life. And of course, I hope to see you in a lot of the events on the Swedish Wealth Institute as well and in their community. And take care, everybody, and be well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.